Nothing in the pen is worse than being called a predator. These people are conversing with a known minor who is dating a brother in David's case, dude. These individuals are conversing with an underage person while being aware of their age, just like when they are dating an adult. The streets believe the problem goes deeper than that. Insiders are already discussing what his time in prison will look like. And believe me, he doesn't have a nice cell life. This is the icy truth that awaits him. The Tesla's body, an internet-shaking discovery. The story begins like a crazy scene from a Netflix documentary. What started out as a typical September morning in 2025 swiftly turned into one of the most bizarre controversies in the history of the music industry. Employees at Hollywood Tow, a typical impound lot in Los Angeles, discovered something on September 8, 2025, that completely upended D4vd's career. A simple report regarding a foul-smelling automobile escalated into a full-fledged homicide investigation. Since then, the internet has continued to buzz. It wasn't just any whip, though. Just 3 years prior, David Anthony Burke, also known as D4vd, was a suburban youngster who was grinding Fortnite montages in his bedroom. It was a 2023 Tesla Model 3, sleek and clean, and registered to him. With over 30 million monthly listeners and billions of streams from songs like Here, With Me, and Romantic Homicide, he had become a chart-topping R&B artist by the age of 20. The man moved quickly from his bedroom to the billboard. None of that mattered that morning, though. Before being towed to the lockup, the Tesla had been left unattended on Bluebird A and Dwayne Drive for around 5 days. Employees continued to notice a foul, sour smell that was getting worse every day. They initially believed it might be a dead cat or an animal trapped beneath the vehicle. However, things changed when they phoned the LAPD because it was becoming intolerable. At that point, they discovered the bag containing the body parts when they opened the Tesla's front hatch. They refer to that as the frunk. In the front of the Tesla, it resembles the trunk, if I remember well. Officers could not have predicted what they found inside the front trunk, or frunk as Tesla owners refer to it. A severely decomposed human body, described as not entire and exhibiting evidence of dismemberment, was crammed into the small compartment and wrapped in plastic bags. The remains state indicated that the deceased had been dead for a long time, possibly months, with the decomposition process being horribly accelerated by the summer heat in Los Angeles. The LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division launched a thorough investigation as soon as the discovery was made. As they arrived at the impound lot, crime scene investigators examined every square inch of the Tesla in search of evidence. Even though the deceased's age, gender, and ethnicity could not be definitively determined in the early reports due to the advanced level of decomposition, the medical examiner's office started the laborious process of trying to identify the corpse. One pressing question dominated headlines for more than a week. Who was it that was discovered in David's vehicle? When the finding was made, the artist was playing in Minneapolis, thousands of miles away, as part of his We Global tour. In a swift statement, his agent said he had been notified of the situation and was fully collaborating with police, but he denied knowing anything unusual was happening with the car. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office released an announcement on September 17, 2025, 9 days later, that sent shockwaves through social media and beyond. Celeste Rivas Hernandez, a 15-year-old girl from Lake Elsinore, California, was identified as the victim. She had been missing since April 2024. Her family had been frantically looking for any sign of their cherished daughter for more than a year after she disappeared when she was 13 years old. The identification procedure itself turned out unsettling information that would spark weeks of internet conjecture and research. A unique little tattoo on Celeste's right index finger, a detail that would turn out to be far more important than anyone first thought, helped to authenticate her identification. They undoubtedly had some of them since the police did report that she had a tattoo on her right index finger that read, "Who... This is a really fascinating fact that we learned about. Internet detectives made a terrifying discovery when pictures started to circulate online. On his right index finger, David himself had a tattoo that was exactly the same. This was no ordinary tattoo design. despite being made popular by celebrities like Lindsay Lohan and Rihanna. The pattern was so unusual that it immediately sparked suspicions when two individuals involved in this case wore matching ink. Users demanded explanations for the meaning of this relationship, as social media erupted with side-by-side comparisons of the tattoos. TMZ producer Charles Latibaudier was the first to report on the significance of this discovery, explaining on the Banfield program how they assisted in the body's identification. Before it was seized, we also know that the vehicle had been left on that Hollywood Hills street for at least 3 days. Speaking with neighbors in the vicinity, we learned that several people had passed the automobile and smelled something foul, leading them to believe that there was a dead animal below or close to it. An even more unsettling picture was presented by the chronology of events. Celeste was only 13 years old when she vanished in April 2024. Her remains' decomposition, however, indicated that she had passed away far more recently. The question of what had transpired during those months of absence was haunted by this. Away from her family and the authorities who were looking for her, had she been alive somewhere? The consequences were too horrible to completely understand. More unsettling information about Celeste's family started to surface as word of the identification spread. At the time of her disappearance, her daughter was seeing an older man named David, according to her mother, who told TMZ. A discovery that made anyone who followed the case shiver. The coincidence that David's real name was David Anthony Burke seemed too important to overlook. With the ferocity and speed that only social media can produce, the internet reacted. #Justice Forceless and #David Tesla were trending worldwide within hours of the identification revelation, with millions of posts analyzing every facet of the case. On Reddit, Twitter, and TikTok, true crime communities started creating timelines, examining images, and making connections that led to an increasingly negative picture. The media coverage was swift and unrelenting. The news was picked up by major media agencies like the BBC and NBC News, with headlines yelling about the missing adolescent and the decomposing body. News agencies from Al Jazeera to local Los Angeles stations covered the story, which took over news cycles. Each is attempting to piece together how a car belonging to a rising star turned out to be the last resting place of a missing teen. Perhaps the most terrifying of all, though, was David's total quiet. The musician who had made a living by using music to express his feelings had nothing to say as his agents insisted he was assisting the authorities. Once teeming with fan discussions and tour information, his social media channel suddenly became silent. It was an uncomfortable and sharp contrast. This person has earned millions of dollars by singing about relationships and heartbreak. However, he remained silent in the face of the most dire circumstance of his life. The consequences were harsh and quick. Companies that had collaborated with David, such as Hollister and Crocs, promptly broke off their relationship with him, eliminating joint ventures and deleting advertisements that featured the singer. Other musicians also started to distance themselves. Kay Uchis declared she was removing their collaboration from streaming services. We are left with more questions than answers at the end of this story's first section. In a rising star Tesla, how did a 15-year-old girl die? What kind of relationship did Celeste have with the much older musician? The number of people in David's orbit who may have realized something was amiss but remained silent is perhaps the most unsettling. The discovery at that impound lot in Hollywood was only the first step. The pattern of behavior that investigators and internet sleuths would later unearth was far more unsettling than anybody had first thought, encompassing alleged grooming, manipulation, and a network of enablers who might have contributed to the concealment of one of the darkest secrets in the music industry. A pattern of predation is shown by the dark web of links. A much darker image began to surface from the depths of the internet as the first shock of finding Celeste Riva's body in David's Tesla subsided. A thorough expose of purported grooming, manipulation, and a troubling pattern of behavior that had been going unnoticed for years swiftly replaced the first conjecture about a fatal coincidence. In addition to linking David to possibly predatory behavior, the evidence would also reveal a network of enablers who reportedly knew about his illicit contacts with youngsters but kept quiet about them. The first significant innovation came from a surprising place. Since December 2023, a leaked demo track has been making the rounds in underground music communities. In light of the latest finding, the words of the song Celeste Demo were uncannily predictive. In the song, David sang openly about a girl named Celeste, with eerie lyrics like, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed." The leak was released months before Celeste vanished in April 2024, which immediately sparked speculation about the nature of their relationship and David's length of time with the victim. However, the music that was leaked was only the beginning. Internet investigators discovered a wealth of evidence pointing to a relationship that had been growing for years as they dug further into David's digital trail. In 2022, screenshots from David's Discord server revealed chats between the singer and a member named Celeste. The exchanges seemed inappropriate and flirty for Celeste's age. In one very damning discussion, the user wrote, "Hiya, David Bark," to which David seemed to reply with attentiveness and encouragement. These Discord logs revealed a timetable that was extremely concerning. These chats, if they were real, showed David talking to Celeste when she was just 11 or 12 and he was 17 or 18. The balance of power was pronounced. An up-and-coming musician with millions of fans interacting with a young fan. The fact that these weren't isolated occurrences but rather seemed to be a part of a continuous communication pattern that lasted for years made matters worse. As seen in this video, a user who had been working to expose David since 2023 caught the unsettling aspect of these relationships in a widely shared social media post. You have all undoubtedly observed David's current predicament. I only want to talk about a few things in this video. I tried to expose David for his actions in 2023, which is why many people on Twitter are upset with me now. And just to be clear, the 2023 material had nothing to do with the Celeste girl, who was clearly in the news lately. It's not related to her. Additional victims and whistleblowers came forward as a result of this disclosure. Several people started posting their own stories and supporting documentation of David's purported habit of inappropriate behavior with minor admirers on social media sites like Reddit and Twitter. Celeste was one of several possible victims of a young guy who used his rising celebrity to seduce and control children, according to screenshots, direct messages, and witness statements. Celeste had nothing to do with the 2023 materials I have. These were other girls, minors, who said David had sent them messages, had relationships with them, or engaged in inappropriate behavior with them. And I want people to know that I did make an effort to raise awareness of the situation in 2023. Many folks recall that I was having a lot of fun with it. It got so terrible that I was contacted by David's legal team to get everything taken down. An email I received from his team in 2023 is enclosed. It was not just digital conversations that provided evidence. Images of David and Celeste meeting in person started to circulate online, seemingly proving that their relationship had progressed beyond virtual exchanges. One particularly noteworthy photo shows David taken a few days before Celeste vanished in April 2024, close to her family's Lake Elsinore house. It was no accident that they were so close. It implied a degree of preparation and deliberateness that added to the unsettling nature of the circumstance. The testimony that came from Celeste's own family was possibly the most damning of all. Identifying himself as Celeste's brother, Matt Rivas made specific allegations regarding David's relationship with his sister. As early as April 2024, when Celeste first vanished, Matt attempted to report David to the authorities, according to discussions that were released with Reddit users. Matt claims that after presenting the Lake Elsinore Police Department with evidence of David's unlawful contact with his little sister, he was informed that there was insufficient evidence to pursue any further action. Possibly the most tragic element of the case as a whole was this discovery. Here was a worried relative who had realized his sister was in danger and had attempted to seek assistance through the appropriate channels, only to be turned away by officials who didn't appear to take the issue seriously enough. According to Matt's story, Celeste may still be alive today if the authorities had taken more immediate action after receiving his initial report. Important background information regarding Celeste's state of mind in her last months was also supplied by the family's statements. Celeste had been totally enamored with her older lover, David, and thought they were in a real romantic connection, according to her mother's statements with media sites. The deception seemed to have been finished. She had been persuaded that her condition was commonplace and voluntary. The pattern of behavior that arose from these revelations was textbook grooming, even though the youngster was unable to legally consent to such a relationship. David allegedly convinced Celeste that their connection was unique and that she needed to keep it a secret by using his notoriety and power to cut her off from her support system. He steadily intensified their relationship until she was emotionally and psychologically reliant on him, offering emotional support during trying moments in her life. The growing proof that David hadn't been acting alone, however, was possibly the most unsettling. According to a number of individuals, his inner circle, friends, relatives, and co-workers, were aware of his illicit ties with kids and either actively encourage the behavior or choose to keep quiet. This included friends and associates who had seen troubling behavior but chose not to report it, as well as moderators on his Discord server who allegedly assisted in hiding evidence of inappropriate chats. When more content providers started to speak out, as this clip shows, the breadth of the cover-up became evident. These people are conversing with a known minor who is dating an older brother, dude. These individuals are conversing with an underage person while being aware of their age, just like when they are dating an adult. This is strange. What's wrong with you? And really, bro, don't hold these guys responsible. I will never stop talking about this. You can always point the finger at those who aren't present because, dude, they're contributing to the issue. The repercussions for David's career were immediate and dire. Major brands started cutting their connections with Celeste within days of her identification. The fact that David's own team appeared to be separating from their customer is perhaps the most striking. There was a noticeable lack of the kind of forceful defense usually seen when major musicians face serious claims, even while his representatives kept making pronouncements about collaboration with authorities. The lack of response implied that even David's closest colleagues were having trouble defending his behavior. It should come as no surprise that some individuals still support David. Defenders noted that it was challenging to locate D4vd in Los Angeles at the time of discovery because he was on tour in Chicago and Minneapolis in the days prior to and following the Tesla's seizure. I'm going to say this now, okay? Bro, he didn't kill anyone. No one was killed by him. No way. No, he hasn't been on tour. No one was killed by him. He has toured. He gave a performance yesterday. Do you watch the vids he makes, bro? He's not going to kill anyone. One thing, however, is clear and inevitable despite all the conjecture and research. The data indicated that if more people had decided to speak out when they initially noticed troubling conduct, the death of a 15-year-old girl would have been avoided. What would happen to David if he was found guilty? The reality of what awaits. The troubled singer, should charges be brought against him and he is found guilty, is far more complicated and dangerous than most people realize, despite the fact that social media is exploding with memes about David's possible prison experience, and true crime enthusiasts conjecture about his future behind bars. The prison system that might become David's new life is a world far distant from the luxury and celebrity he has known for the previous 3 years, but the investigation into Celeste Rivas' death is still ongoing, with new information indicating that formal charges may be near. Suspects in homicide investigations in Los Angeles are initially detained in county jails or the LAPD's Metropolitan Detention Center until arraignment. This does not equate to comfort or privacy for a celebrity. One of the most overcrowded and violent imprisonment systems in the U.S. for a long time is the Los Angeles County Jail System, which includes establishments like Men's Central Jail and Twin Towers. Federal inspectors noted severe abuses of fundamental rights in 2024, pointing to rampant gang violence, severe congestion, and faulty plumbing. Even in pre-trial confinement, prominent prisoners are vulnerable. Celebrities are frequently placed in protective custody by guards, away from the public. However, loneliness itself can be debilitating. According to a 2023 Vera Institute analysis, detainees in protective custody frequently endure up to 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, which can cause anxiety, depression, and in certain situations, self-harm. The transition would be harsh for a 20-year-old accustomed to performing big arenas. David would probably spend his trial at LA County's Twin Towers Correctional Facility if the LAPD probe leads to charges. Twin Towers is known for hosting gang affiliations, inmates in need of extra protection, and mental health issues. Despite safety precautions, celebrities like Suge Knight and O.J. Simpson encounter threats and fights when incarcerated in Los Angeles County jails. But after a conviction, the situation shifts. Gang and ethnic politics dominate California's jail system. In order to prevent riots, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, or CDCR, segregates prisoners based on race, yet the culture of loyalty cannot be avoided. Black convicts frequently associate with Bloods, Crips, or prison-specific gangs, while Latino inmates tend to associate with organizations like the Mexican Mafia, or Serenos, and white inmates frequently associate with organizations like the Aryan Brotherhood. It would be dangerous for a young celebrity like David, who is not a member of a gang, to navigate this environment. This terrible reality is the basis for the internet jokes about his melancholy songs and gentle voice making him appear weak. Non-violent, non-gang offenders are frequently singled out by prison hierarchy, particularly if they are young, well-known, or seen as weak. It's made worse by the fact that his alleged victim was just 15 years old. Crimes against juveniles are viewed as the least serious infraction in jail culture. If incarcerated in the general population, inmates guilty of such offenses frequently face attacks, extortion, or even death. Safety would not be ensured even by protected custody. It has been reported that prisoners have attacked while being moved, manipulated transfers, and bribed guards. His vulnerability would be increased in a case with this much public attention, when every prisoner in the jail would be aware of his name and the alleged crimes. As of late September 2025, David has not been charged with homicide by the LAPD. Keycard logs, surveillance footage from the area where the car was abandoned, and Tesla GPS records are the main focus of their ongoing inquiry. From a property connected to him on Dini Place, detectives confiscated a computer and hard drives. TMZ was informed by sources that they are looking for links to Celeste in his digital history. Even though no charges have been brought, the investigation itself has not kept up with the rumors of jail time. His own artwork is the source of this conjecture. Lyrics about killing a girlfriend named Celeste and enduring the memory can be found in Romantic Homicide. These lyrics are now reframed by fans as confessions, and they are used as the background music for mugshots and prison cell edits. With lyrics about unending passion and tattoos that reflected his real-life relationships with her, the unreleased demo Celeste only strengthened this belief. A cultural trend can be seen in the internet's fixation with David's prison cell memes. Before the results of the court proceedings are known, celebrities who are accused of horrible acts are frequently the target of internet ridicule. The sight of picturing them behind bars becomes its own amusement, from R. Kelly to Tekashi, 699. However, the situation is not amusing to those who are involved. Among the most violent jails in the country are those in California. Over 6,000 assaults, including 2,000 with weapons, were reported by CDCR in 2022. David would probably spend decades in state jail if found guilty of homicide or possibly accessory charges. He would be at his most vulnerable when he entered the system because he is only 20 years old. Rapper YNW Melly, for instance, has been in Florida jails for years awaiting trial after being charged with double homicide at the age of 19. During that time, he has been subjected to daily threats, seclusion, and declining mental health. People compare the two, claiming that if charges are brought, David's future would be similar to Melié's, a never-ending cycle of court delays, survival, and incarceration. The cultural repercussions are already becoming apparent. His streaming audience has drastically decreased. He was discreetly taken off of the main Spotify and Apple Music listings by playlist curators. The remaining events were canceled by the concert venues. He was removed from advertising by brands. His career seemed to be in real-time collapse within 2 weeks after Celeste's identification. Nevertheless, some supporters persisted in defending him in spite of everything. They contend that lyrics shouldn't be used as proof, that he was on tour when the Tesla was abandoned, and that the vehicle might have been used without his knowledge. They consider career cancellations and the rush-to-prison jokes to be online trials. They point to numerous instances where media conjecture anticipated court decisions, such as NBA YoungBoy or Tory Lanez. The victim's age and the horrific circumstances surrounding her death, however, make this case different. The scandal of a 15-year-old being dismembered and abandoned in a car with his name attached to it never goes away. The stigma remains whether he is charged or not. Despite their exaggeration, the jokes about his prison cell capture the seriousness of his current image, not only as a budding artist but also as a predator with the most dire prospects. The LAPD case is still pending. Results from toxicology are still pending. Digital forensics is in progress. There are no charges pending. However, the verdict has already been rendered in the court of public opinion. David's prison cell is a matter of when rather than if for a large portion of the planet. To view more videos like this one, click on one of the boxes that is currently playing on your screen.